Did you know that Berlin is 9 times the size of Paris, but it is less densely populated, so it's nice and spacious and airy, and also it has more canals and waterways than Venice. So why would an expat who's been living there for over 3 years have a love-hate relationship with the city? Well, Kalie sits down with Waleo to explain why.
Hi, can you go ahead and tell us your name, introduce yourself, and where you're living right now?
Hi Kalie, thank you so much for inviting me to your channel. My name is Waleo. I'm a content creator and I create content about all things living abroad, moving abroad, travel, specifically now a bit about Germany because that's where I live currently. I do that at Waleo Chronicles on YouTube and also on Instagram. I also share tips and tricks of how to move abroad. And you can find me on TikTok doing silly things as well.
Awesome. Okay, so you're living in Germany. What city are you in and why are you there?
So I currently live in Berlin, the coolest city in Germany. I live in Berlin and I moved to Berlin to pursue a master degree 3 years ago in Germany. And I'm still in Berlin now because now I work full-time. I'm done with all that and I work full-time. I just did not leave Berlin. I'm still here. Don't know why.
Because it's the coolest city, apparently.
I know. I'm saying that to myself, also to remind myself, because I have a love-hate relationship with Berlin. So sometimes I'm like, oh, it's such an awesome city. And sometimes when it's winter time and it's so cloudy and it's so dirty, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here?
So you would say a con to being in Berlin is the weather in the winter?
I mean, Berlin is not the most beautiful city in the world. The pro of Berlin is that it's so international, so diverse, and there are so many things to do. You can always find something to do. But then in the past year, because of the Rona that has been going on, the things to do has been off the table, and then you're just like stuck in a not so beautiful city with grey weather, and it can take its toll on your mental health sometimes.
Okay, that's something to consider. So you, before living in Berlin, where did you live and how does that contrast to being in Berlin?
It's an absolute opposite because I was living in Indonesia before I moved to Germany, and I mean, do I need to say more? They're like two very, very different countries because of course Indonesia is a tropical country with 365 days of sunshine, and Germany is a European country with 4 seasons, and the winters can be quite brutal and really, like I said, in Berlin, very gray and sunless. So they're like real opposites.
So then why are you in Berlin?
I know, I'm asking myself the same question. Like I said, I moved here for a master degree and I'm done with my master degree now, and I got a full-time position after my master degree. So it's just like, yeah, I'm here for now. We don't know where the next country is gonna be.
Okay, that's good thinking. Well, earlier you mentioned like a con being the weather and it being kind of gloomy. What are some pros to living in Berlin? What are some things you like?
Multiculturalism and diversity, Berlin. And also English is very easily accessible, and there is always something going on when it comes to leisure activities, things to do. No matter what your interests are, you will always find people who also have that interest. And it's very open and accepting, no matter your disposition or interest or your identity or whatever it is not as conservative as other parts of Germany, for example. So I would say for me, those are the pros of living in Berlin.
Okay, so let's shift a little bit. You said that you moved to Berlin because of studies. So were you on a student visa? What visa are you on right now? Like tell us the visa process.
I wanted to move to Australia, but Australia as an international student is really expensive. And then I already was familiar with Germany. I was already learning German, and I knew that the educational system in Germany is really affordable. So Germany is still one of the countries in Northern Europe that's higher education, public universities are tuition free, even for international students. So although I did not end up going to a public university, I ended up going to a private university in Germany. It still was significantly cheaper to go to a private university in Germany than it would have cost me to go to maybe like Canada or Australia or the UK or all those other English speaking countries. So I moved to Germany on a student visa. And there are many other ways to move to Germany, of course, but I will speak about my personal experience. I moved to Germany on a student visa, and then the student visa allows you to, depending on how long your studies are, mine was 2 years, and I was able to do that within 2 years. And then after that, if you study in Germany, you are entitled to an 18 months job seekers visa. So after this 18 months, you can do whatever kind of job you want without restrictions, because while you are a student, there are restrictions to how much you can work. But the goal of this 18 months is that you are supposed to be able to find a job that is equivalent to your qualification within this 18 months so that you can switch to a work permit or a blue card, depending on the kind of job you're doing. So if you're in the category of a highly sought after skill or a shortage skill or whatever name you want to call it, like software developers or people working in tech, then you're entitled to apply to a blue card, which I don't want to go into too many details, but right now I'm on a work permit.
Okay. All right, good. So there's a possibility to shift from a student visa to a work permit. It seems like they give you some time to find a job after studying and everything. So it seems like a pretty good program for visas.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, earlier you mentioned that you recommend that people learn German. What are some other ways that people can adapt, and how have you adapted living in Berlin?
Living in Berlin has not really helped my German so much because, like I said, English is so easily accessible, and then you get lazy. You don't even learning a language is like a muscle you're trying to train, right? Especially in your adulthood, it doesn't come. So maybe for some people it comes easily, but for the rest of us, normal people,
yeah, not so much.
It doesn't really come easily, so you really have to force yourself. But in Berlin, because I do not have to force myself, I'm kind of like, I get lazy sometimes. And even though I can speak German and I can say what I want to say in German, I just get lazy and I speak English. What has helped me the most is watching German TV. I watch almost everything, even if there's a Netflix show that I want to watch. I watch it in German with German subtitles. It's really helped me a lot. And also now I work with lots of Germans, so I try to speak German with them from time to time. And I attended some German classes before moving to Germany, so I had already learned to a very high level, well, not very high, to an intermediate level before moving to Germany. But the actual speaking and understanding improved more after I moved to Germany. So I would say you just have to, if you're living in a city like Berlin, you have to kind of be very disciplined and force yourself, otherwise you will just never learn. But if you want to go hardcore, then you can go to like not so big German city where English is not so accessible. Then you're forced, you have no choice, you have to speak it. I know some people who went to that route and their German improved so quickly because they are forced to. So it just depends on your approach, I guess.
Do you think German is hard?
Is that a question?
It seems like a hard language. I mean,
Yes.
languages in general, for me, are hard for me, but German just seems like a hard language to learn.
It is difficult. I can tell you it is difficult. They have so many different ways of saying the article like the bottle. Like they have so many different ways of saying just the bottle, depending on what part the noun comes in the sentence. And normally in German, like the verb comes at the end of the sentence. So sometimes you're trying to make a sentence and you already forgot the tense you're trying to use, because at the end you're like, oh my god, what's the verb I'm supposed to use, you know?
That sounds really hard. So then your university classes must have been in English. All of them were in English then?
Yes, everything. So one of the reasons why I also chose private universities, because many private universities offer English taught degrees, but also there are public universities that also offer English taught programs as well. But I did my master degree in English. I definitely cannot study in German. God no. Imagine I have to write my master thesis in German. It was already difficult enough in English. Like I would just die.
I bet, yeah. Okay, you kind of mentioned culture shock as well earlier. So language and adapting that way. Any other culture shock things that happened to you that made it hard to adapt?
So regarding culture shock, I wouldn't say they made it difficult for me to adapt as such. I would say more like it was just like an interesting, wow, or an interesting like, oh my god, the Germans are so weird.
Oh, give us an example.
Yeah, I will give an example of the Germans are so weird ones. So one of the things about Germany, I don't know if it's because of where I'm located in Germany, but I think it's a German-wide thing. The Germans are very comfortable in their bodies, so nudity is not a big deal in Germany, for example. The first time I went to a lake, I think it was a lake, I don't even remember, and yeah, it was a lake, and then people were just taking off their clothes by the strand, we call it beach, by the beach side, or it's a lake, it's not really a beach, but like by the lake shore or whatever, and then people were going to swim and they were just taking off their clothes in front of everybody and they just ran.
Everything.
Yes, and nobody blinked, and me, I was there, I was like, oh my god, is this happening? You know when you're trying to not stare at something,
but you can't just not do it.
Like darting looks, and I was like, oh my god. And it wasn't just men, it was men, women, children, nobody cared, and people were just running into the lake, just happy that the sun was shining. And I've also heard, I've never been to a sauna in Germany because of this reason. Many saunas in Germany are like nude saunas, so you cannot wear bathrobes, you cannot wear towels, you have to go in nude. And they do it like they can go with friends or with family, and everybody's just free with their buddies. For me, I'm still like, no, we're not swimming naked, we're not going to the sauna naked, no. So for me, that was a culture shock, but I really like that they are very comfortable in their bodies, and it's not really a big deal. So for me.
Okay, so when you first moved, what was settling in like, and did you have any problems trying to get settled?
Even though English is easily accessible in Berlin, you still have to do many of the registration and government things in German. So I think for me, every time I would receive like a letter, and also another thing is that Germany is still so obsessed with paper-based stuff. You receive letters from every single Behörde, like government parastatal, you receive letters from all of them. And when I would receive letters, it would give me so much anxiety, because of course I could not really read and understand, because they were speaking the German at a very high level, very formal and official. But most of the things, like if you come to Germany, you have to be registered at the city registration office. You have to be registered in 14 days, within 14 days. And you have to do that in German, of course. So also that was a bit of stress for me. And another thing is that once you before you can register, you have to get an apartment, and it's difficult to get an apartment before you even arrive. So it's like they tell you within 14 days of arriving you need to be registered, but to register you need an apartment, and of course you don't have an apartment. So it was really a struggle in the beginning. Luckily, I was able to stay with someone temporarily that allowed me to just register with their address, because you have to have an address, of course. It has to be registered or approved, that's the word I'm looking for. It has to be approved by the landlord before you can register at that apartment. So yeah, that's a bit of a struggle for many people, because when you come, you have to look for temporary accommodation first, and the temporary accommodation might not allow you to register with the address first of all. So then of course you cannot register within 14 days. So that was a bit of a struggle for me settling in the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, sounds pretty stressful having to go through that. Any advice for people who have to go through that? Like any tips that you might have?
The tip I can give is that you should just look for temporary accommodation that allows you to register. And to do that, you can go on websites like WG Gesucht. That's like there's a common thing in Germany where you share apartments with other people. So you can go to that website and look for maybe a room in a shared apartment that allows you to register. So you can be there for like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, depending on how long it's gonna take you to find accommodation. And in Berlin, it will take you long.
Why? Why does it take so long?
Yeah, there's an apartment crisis, and sometimes you go to view an apartment. And in Germany, the way they invite people to view apartments, you don't come like on a one-on-one basis. They invite like tons of people, and all of you are queuing up to view the apartment, and it's like, quickly look at it. This, if you like it, submit your documents, and you have to come there with all your documents. Like they need your payslip, your what do they need again to prove that you can? They need so many documents from you, so you have to come there with all those documents. So that you really like it, you have to be among the first to apply. Otherwise, then they will not consider you. It's really crazy finding an apartment in Berlin. And another interesting thing is that to open a bank account, you have to be registered with the city of Berlin or the area where you live. And if you don't have accommodation, you also cannot register, and you also cannot open a bank account. So everything is many things are tied to this registration. So yeah, getting somewhere to live is your biggest headache when you first arrive.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. But okay, you made it through and you're good. So now life is feeling a bit more normal. Like, what's a normal day look like for you?
Going to work, and then on the weekends, like I said, Berlin is very fun. There are many interesting things to do. So on the weekend, I would maybe like make a day trip somewhere, or I would find an event. Like, I love jazz. I love going to jazz clubs. So I would go to a jazz club in the evening. There are many bars where they do like craft beer, craft drinks. Like, they really make it really creative. And I mean, Berlin is known to be the techno or electronic music capital of Europe. It's not really my cup of tea, but people travel to Berlin just for that. It's not my cup of tea, so that's not a typical day for me for sure. And what else would I do? I love to explore neighborhoods, and Berlin is massive. So I've been living here for 3 years now, and I still haven't explored all the neighborhoods in Berlin. So I love to do that. And yeah, I think that's pretty much. Oh, and eating. Oh my God, how could I forget? Berlin, the food. I've become such a food snob since living in Berlin because the food is good and you can find food from every single part of the world. Like, I went to an Indonesian restaurant and I was not disappointed. You can find food from like, what other random restaurants have I gone to? I went to a Jamaican restaurant and I wasn't disappointed. I went to what other restaurant, like Persian restaurant from Iran, I think. Iran or somewhere like that. Yeah, it's really multicultural in terms of the food scene is really good.
Okay, so besides becoming a foodie, now that you're in Berlin, has anything else changed with you? Has Berlin changed you in any way?
Now I wear more black outfits.
Do you?
No, that's not true. That's not true. I just tried to think about a Berlin stereotype just to say it.
So that's a stereotype? Everyone wears black?
Yeah, that's the stereotype. Like, you have to wear like black and leather and like look grunge and like have some weird chain around your neck. But I don't dress like that. No. But seriously, to answer your question, I don't really think anything has changed for me aside from the fact that I used to travel a lot more. But of course, I don't think that's a Berlin thing. It's more a Rona thing because of the situation the past 2 years. I don't really think it's changed me that much. I wouldn't say no.
Okay, well, at Expats Everywhere, we believe that living abroad transforms lives, and you have been living abroad in different places. So how has it transformed your life?
I would say the biggest thing for me, like that has changed for me, is like I'm so much more open-minded now. So I'm originally from Nigeria. I don't know if I mentioned that before, and from a very conservative country, and it's really conservative in every sense of the word. Still very patriarchal, still very religious oriented, and so on. But since moving abroad, it's made me realize that there is no one single way that it's right. Being right is relative. So there are many ways to be right, and even the word right is just like, I don't know, it's just like a construct. So it's just made me like more open-minded to see that there is more to life than just one single tunnel vision kind of way to live your life. And the fact that somebody is doing life very differently from the way you know does not mean the person is wrong. So I think for me, open-mindedness is the biggest thing that I've learned since living in different countries.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for talking to us today about your life, your channel, living in Berlin, and other places that you've lived.
Thank you very much for having me on your channel.
If you guys want to know more about Germany, we've created a playlist right here for you. So click that and dig into the content we've created about Germany. And if you're new to the channel, join our community by hitting the subscribe button. I'm Josh with Expats Everywhere. Let's get moving. Bye.